Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Really happy here to be joined by Anil Varanasi, the CEO and co-founder of Meter. Anil, welcome very much.
Hey, Bob, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So great couple of days. Just had the Meter Up event, second annual one, I believe.
That's
Um, and just great content, a lot of discussions about the technology, where you're moving forward, discussions with customers, with partners, and some really impressive guest speakers. Satya Nadella from Microsoft, Bob Metcalf, the founder of Ethernet. There was Kate Johnson from Lumen on board, and several others as well. So it was really interesting because it almost felt like a little bit more of a second coming out for Meter Up. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, if you would. What does this event mean to Meter? What does it mean for your next chapter? And how you're approaching maybe the enterprise networking market?
Sure. Lots of questions there. I'll try to tackle all of them. I think what the event means for us is definitely a place for us to convene with our partners and customers. Directly meeting these folks is usually when we learn the most. When we build some of our best products and best releases, it's usually tied back to a particular customer and a particular partner wanting something. And when we do our worst work is when we don't do that.
Right.
So doing these sort of things helps us a lot to convene with them and then hear directly, sit down with them.
Yeah.
That's actually the most fun part. I wish we could convince everybody to just come and just talk to them all day. But you have to have a conference around it. And then we also, I think, hope Meter Up continues to be the place where people that care about networking in general convene. Today, there really isn't a place that if you care about networking, you go to.
Right.
A lot of the legacy conferences for other vendors have become about, 500 different products and, WebEx and Zooms and all this stuff.
Yep.
And has nothing to do with networking.
Right.
And so we want to do that too. And then we also think it's a very interesting time in the industry where there's not many pure networking companies left, maybe one or two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're certainly one of them.
Yeah.
And we just want to do really well in being able to build products for networking. And that's what we showed with, we started off with our partner summit where we had all of our partners that work with us come together.
Right.
Then we went through bunches of technology. At Partner Summit, we had partners talk about how they work with us.
Yeah.
Even at Partner Summit, we had customers talk about how they work with us. And the same thing at the conference as well on why somebody wants to work with Meter and the scale at which we're doing it. But more than anything, I think it's exciting to be part of something that so many people believe in.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to note, even though this is your second Meter Up, the company's not 2 years old.
Sure.
You've been at this for a while, and I've always liked your approach of when you don't announce things and then see who's interested and bring them out over the next few years.
Right.
You tend to build things, test them, try them out yourself, and then when you're fully satisfied, release them to the market. So you've already got an impressive lineup of products and solutions that you're bringing to market. One of the other things that was really fascinating yesterday is that doesn't mean you're not continuing to innovate, and you actually announced 9 new hardware platforms. You announced, I think it was some of the additions to Command to go into for support and for operations, which was, super impressive. And then lastly, a big partnership announcement with Lumen as well.
Right.
I was wondering if you could talk about maybe some of those new products and the announcements a little bit.
Yeah, we end up in that thing that you mentioned of build products, test them, release them.
Yeah.
Hopefully the testing happens a little bit sooner than what's imagined, which is you end up going to customers and saying, what is the problem you're having today? Yeah. And are we able to solve that for you? And usually that should inform what we go build in hardware. And that's what we did with these 9 new platforms, which is 3 new firewalls, 3 new switches, and 2 wireless access points and 1 cellular gateway for the entire stack.
Yep.
Each of them, if you'll see, they're purpose built for a particular customer. Yep. If you ask me, who did you build this for? I can actually tell you the exact customer that we have in mind for each of these products. And it's sort of this like thing of should have the specific person you're doing something for,
Yep.
and then being able to generalize it. So we ended up building a lot for that. Then even the use cases that we're talking about with Command, so much of the industry, even with what's happening in models, has become very buzzword. And where you've seen even some of the largest networking companies announce things, and then 2 years later, they're still not in hand. And we released Command last year once it was built, but we had taken years to build it. And the two use cases we showcased are again drawn from customer problems and drawn from partner problems to be able to deliver. It's very important for us to be able to continue to build by knowing exactly who we're building something for.
No, I think that's great. One of the other big differentiators that I like is that you own the entire stack. You talk about that repeatedly. You design and build all your own hardware and so forth. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about why that's so important for you and what the value is to your customers when they're consuming it.
So there's actually two things there. One is actually building the entire stack.
Yep.
And then two, building every part of each part of that stack ourselves. So there's two separate things there. On the first one, on building the entire stack, networking is complicated for sure. Routing, switching, wireless, IPsec, IDS, IPS, SD-WAN, VPN, LAN, WAN. There's so many things that go on. If you look at all the largest networking companies, every part of it was something they bought from others. Yeah. There's not a single stack that gets deployed today where any part of it was actually built in-house anymore. It was entirely through acquisition. You can look at any of the vendors. We think if we all were starting networking today, we would actually build it up the way we did it, which is if you know these are the problems that are out there, and we just build them all together so they actually work all together. Because majority of the issues in networking happen because of compatibility issues between these parts and configuration issues because they're so hard to wrangle. Then in that, we do have particular opinions. I think one of the things we feel very strongly about is that hardware should not be commoditized. Mm-hmm. We think that's been a reflection of the business models and the incentives people have had. And we don't have those incentives. We are not looking to sell our customers boxes every 6 months with ever so imperceptible differences in model numbers. And like, you have this thing that was X23412. Now you need to buy ZY2334s, whatever. That's not what we're trying to do. So that gives us different. So for both of these, what it matters for customer outcomes is if it's one stack, far fewer issues happen in networks. That means companies can focus on other things.
Yep.
And then if it's built instead of being bought and hardware that's not commoditized, the outcomes end up being better. Because customers just care about three things when it comes to networking. They want networking to be fast, they want it to be reliable, and they want it to be secure. Yeah. And the only way you build great software is with great hardware. Right. And that's something, unfortunately, I think networking industry has forgotten about, where hardware's commoditized doesn't really matter, but where does the software sit? It has to sit on hardware.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I like the fact that you were tying it to the outcomes of what they're getting, right? So that better having that full stack, having the hardware and having fewer problems, reliability, availability, all super important for organization, right? The network's the lifeblood of an organization today, right? We all know that. I think in the research we had done, 93% said the network is more important to achieving our business outcomes today, right? So I think that's really super important. Along those same lines, when we think about the network, you talked a lot yesterday about moving from managed to autonomous networks, right? And so that's obviously a lot of people are talking about AI and autonomy and so forth. How does your full stack approach make that more possible? And what does true autonomy look like for you when you're taking it to the enterprise for the network?
Yeah, so not only do we think the full stack approach makes it possible, we think it's the only way it will be possible. And we've seen this over and over again in every industry. We saw it with autonomous vehicles, with what Tesla had to do and what Waymo had to do. Yeah. It's not an accident that even though there were other car companies that are much larger, been around longer, have orders of magnitude more customers and cars out there, it's not even close to what Tesla and Waymo are able to do.
Right.
Honestly, it's mainly because they own the stack. Because that means they can control the stack, and there's data coming from every part of the stack.
Yeah.
And if you know what data is coming, and if you know how to control it, that's how you build autonomy.
Right.
And what full autonomy basically means to us is the three aspects of networking today, which are designing networks, configuring networks, and managing networks. Each of those at discrete points takes up a lot of time and a lot of resources. Can that come down to zero?
Okay.
That's it.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. One of the things I wanted to follow up on during the conversations yesterday, there was a lot of time spent on the diminishing, I guess, availability of network engineers. That talk about, we've talked about this. A lot of the senior people are going to be retiring out, maybe a quarter of the workforce, and so forth. I'm wondering if you could talk about where you see that role of the network engineer evolving as more autonomy comes into the network.
I study networking myself, and I hate seeing what's happening. I think the reason it's probably happening is we've made networking this complicated buzzword alphabet soup thing where it's hard to come in.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at software engineering, I can just go in and do a hello world in 2 weeks of a class.
Right.
And I can quickly start building things.
Right.
Whereas networking has a steep learning curve. But once you get in, a lot of times what you have to do is the grunt work of configurations and designs and looking at thousands of lines of log files and things.
Right.
So we've made it hard to get in, and then we made it impossible to stay in.
Right.
So that's why you see so many network engineers going to security and other things, is because those other parts of technology aren't doing those two things. So one, I want to figure out how we and all of us change both of those things. And one of our selfish things with autonomous networks is that engineering comes back to network engineering.
Yeah.
Engineering is about building new things. It's about architectures. It's about topology. It's about framing things and figuring out how something should be built.
Right.
We should be doing more in protocol. We should be doing more architecture than topology, and we should have more network engineers doing those things rather than, taking bright people, putting them through college, training them.
Yeah.
But the reality of their job every day is like sitting there and like watching log files. Of course, it's not exciting.
Yeah.
So we hope that because of this, those things are taken away. Because it's a repetitive task that machines are actually much better at.
Right.
But there's many things machines are not good at that we think network engineers can be phenomenal at.
No, I think that's great. I mean, that's something we hear. People don't want to do the routine, mundane tasks over and over again. They want to be involved in tasks that are going to make a difference in their organization, right?
That's right.
Strategic initiatives that they're working on, help drive revenue and so forth.
That's
for
right.
the business. So, and I think again, because of the growing importance of the network in modern environments today and modern applications, it's really going to be imperative for organizations to recognize that they need those network teams working on those strategic initiatives and not the routine, mundane tasks.
The stat you were mentioning earlier that we talked about yesterday of, quarter of the network engineers retiring by the end of the decade.
Yeah.
That's just a replacement rate.
Right.
Not all the new ones we need because of how many data devices applications are growing. Just replacement.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do is a great question.
Yeah. So it's going to, that's going to be interesting to see. And hopefully it's going to be via these automation solutions.
Yeah. I think the question is, if we didn't build the entire stack with Meter and we wouldn't build autonomous networks, what is happening to networking in the next 5 years?
Yeah. Who's going to take it on? No, that's a good point. One of the things I wanted to pull out from yesterday as well was your expansion from the LAN into the WAN. And you had talked about and announced your partnership with Lumen using their Connect capability to really expand organizations' ability to not just go across the WAN, get ISP connectivity, but to really simplify that ability, right? Because everyone, yes, you can call up, and I think they've gone through the steps. It takes 5 5 emails and several hours or days to go through and do it. You've reduced that down to a couple of clicks, mouse clicks in your software. I'm wondering if you could talk about, for those enterprises, how combining that WAN into a single workflow is going to help benefit them.
Yeah, I don't think you have a great network without a great connection to the outside world. So it starts with something as simple as that. What the partnership enables that we were able to do with Lumen, the reason it's exciting is, one, it gives customers better pricing.
Yeah.
And everybody wants better pricing, especially our customers that are enterprise customers that have hundreds and thousands of locations.
Yeah.
You end up paying a lot of money to this stuff. So getting bidding pricing, because you're a meter customer, that's value we're bringing to customers that they're not paying us anything new for, but by the virtue of being a meter customer, they're getting. Second is the whole procurement and deployment process, the huge pain today.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is copying, pasting, and calling someone, what is the static IP? Where do I put it? All of that. That software can do that really well.
Yeah.
And then the worst thing that happens is when there is a problem with an ISP, not knowing what happened.
Right.
And what this partnership also enables us to do is have deeper visibility of the systems that Lumen has in place directly inside our dashboard.
Okay.
So it's again comes back to the customer problems. They want better pricing. They want to deploy as easily as possible. And when something goes wrong, this is true for any of us, we want to know what happened.
Yeah. And for so long, that's always been a little bit of a black hole.
Yes.
Right? You knew what was going on inside your building, but as soon as you went out, right, the PowerPoints used to depict it with the cloud, right?
Yeah,
Here's the cloud. It's obscure. You don't know what's happening. So, but as environments become far more distributed today, right? So many of these enterprises now, it's whether they're connecting to multiple clouds, whether they're connecting to the remote locations, other data centers, et cetera. It's all about that distributed environment. So having that connectivity to get them there, making it seamless, making it cost effective,
that's right,
is certainly going to benefit a lot of those enterprise customers. So to bring all this together, new hardware, command, autonomy, WAN, all coming together this year, what does the next phase of meter look like for organizations? What should they be looking out for the next year?
I think even if you put meter aside, that's probably one of the most underappreciated things is how much of a crucial point networking in as a whole.
Yep.
If any of the viewers are watching, if they can name pure networking companies, other than meter, there's maybe one that's doing it at scale. That's scary. So even if we put meter aside, we think the next sort of 1,000 days is going to forge who is going to be the default networking provider for the next 10 to 20 years. So that's one of the most crucial things that is happening today already. Whether we as people that are building companies, you as covering companies understand or not, it is happening.
Right.
What we hope to do is contribute with hardware, software, autonomy, but also operations and partnerships on how to have a great default for the industry.
Yeah.
And we do that with, frankly, starting with just doing the basics in networking right. People inside our company know it's something we all care about. Even if we don't do anything else, if we just do the basics right, which is build great hardware, implement protocols properly, and make it easy to deploy and maintain networks for customers and partners, that's actually honestly enough. And we do this across, as you know, ISP, routing, switching, wireless security, all the way up. So if we just do the basics right, we think there's a great opportunity for meter to be the default option.
Well, obviously that sounds great. Even more importantly, the customers that I've talked to this week have reiterated that as well, that they believe you're getting the basics right. You're getting the core. I think one of the more interesting comments I heard from one of your customers is they said, we're not buying networks, we're buying outcomes.
Right.
And they're buying positive outcomes. Sure. And so, heard countless stories of how much faster it is to be able to deploy, how much they don't have to deal with those manual repetitive problems, et cetera, when they're using your technology. So being able to overcome some of the Wi-Fi challenges that they haven't been able to in the
Right.
past. And so I think there's a lot of proof points that were coming out of Meter Up this week that really showed the progress that you've made and how focusing on the basics is really paying off, not only for Meter, but for your customers and your
Sure.
partners as well.
Yeah, and I think unless you've been paying very close attention, I think it's surprising both the size of how big Meter is, um, and the quality of the customers and the quantity of customers.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most fun parts, is having a lot of them together.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So a lot of people think new company, right? Startup, small customers, et cetera. But we talked to some very large
Some of the
global
largest networks in the world.
organizations with some of the most complex environments that you're working on solving and rolling out into. So I think all that has been great. Uh, awesome getting an opportunity to talk to you again. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Bob.
your insights. Thank all of you for joining us today. You know, obviously great to be here at Meter Up, be able to see all the innovation that they're bringing to market, the new platforms, the software, the partnerships to expand to the WAN. And so, you know, clearly there's a lot going on at Meter that you want to be paying attention to. So for more information, make sure you check out their website. Once again, thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time.